Which is where it is now, right?
Yes, but the garages would be in the back.
Right.
And you lose all that green space back there.
No.
You wouldn't lose the
No,
buffer.
you wouldn't,
You
because, see,
wouldn't.
they're talking about
All you'd be
moving the
doing
road
is,
behind.
you'd be taking this plan, basically, and just flipping it upside down.
And
And the garages would face all the existing residences back here. Yes, you'd have that landscape
Doors
berm,
still would.
but you'd have a lot more activity back there.
Right.
We were trying to limit the activity back here and keep the activity along the parking lot outside.
Which is where the existing residents would want it.
I couldn't
Which
hear
is
you.
where the existing residents that live there now would want it. On the,
Which is where they would want it.
yeah, not
But-
an alley behind their house.
But if it's, but if you had.
If we put the alley back here, you're gonna have trash trucks back there, you're gonna have guests coming back there, we'd have to do guest parking, we'd have to put, everything would be on that side, where right now we're trying to keep,
But you still
There's
have.
a little
your-
activity back
You
there.
still have your buffer, though.
we still have the buffer in either case,
With the berm.
With the
as
berm.
They're proposing.
correct.
And not only that, the people who use this, like you said, they're not young as I am. They're older people anyway. And if you drive in your garage, you go in the house, you're not gonna walk back around to the front. I mean, this is a garage that is inside, so that wouldn't.
They would
make
keep
a difference to
activity,
them.
yes, on the garage side, that's
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right, any other discussion before we go on to the modifications?
Well, as I say, and we should say, this is definitely less intensive than
Oh, yeah.
what else could be there, and I think everyone agrees with that. It just still, though, do we have anything else where we have, if you look on that the last page there, where the garage takes up 75%?
No, that's-
I don't want to say
I believe
75%.
that's why we have the zoning ordinance written the way it is for multi-use, or I'm sorry, multifamily developments to restrict this look right here.
Yeah.
That's why he's asking for the modification of standards, because it's not something we promote.
And we do have a number of assisted living that are coming in, asking for modifications of standards. We will see this type of thing again if this is approved.
But when you look at that, and I'm normally, pretty doesn't excite me that much, but when you look at this, when I was looking at that, it just looked like the garage door. That's all I saw were garage doors. They're so large compared to the door where you walked. It looks kind of strange to me. It looks real strange to me.
So what would you say the percentage of the front of the house is? The garage is what percent of the front of the,
Counting both the first and second floor?
no, the first floor?
Just the
Just the first floor?
Yeah,
It's probably a little over 75%.
yeah, yeah.
Each unit is 25 feet wide, 24 foot wide, I believe the
And
garage door is
that's
16,
16.
so
It's 16.
it's over.
Well, let's go in and address each of these modification standards, because we're sort of talking about those as we're going forward, so.
Mr. Chairman, if I might,
Yes.
we will need also, if the plat is going to be changed to the 50-foot setback, we will need that plat to come back to Plan Commission very quickly. We would anticipate that plan coming back either next month or at minimum the month after.
Does that need to be part of the motion then?
I would like
As a
that to be part
condition?
of the motion.
I can't remember how you voted last month, but you did vote to defer it for,
Two months ago, and it was to defer the plat until these got approved.
so it has to come back at the next meeting, I think, based on your prior vote anyway. So I think you've already done that. If you want to say it on the record tonight, you can, but it's a live item, and it's just sitting there waiting for this to happen, so it has to come back. It's still a live item.
Okay. Well, let's go down through the
I
modifications.
was just going to say, these modifications are design modifications only, is that right? They
Correct.
will not go to the Board of Mayor and
They
Aldermen?
will not.
No.
And we're talking about 60 or 70%, no, at least,
Over 75%.
yeah, of the front, of the first floor being a garage.
But again, if these are alley loaded, you'd have this same condition even at
But it
West
wouldn't be
Haven
the
or
front,
Torquay.
would it? It wouldn't be the
In the
front of the
back.
house, would it?
Well, they would be on the alley.
But
But-
didn't you say the front of the house would be facing the,
This more or less serves as an alley with the open space behind. In the alternative, we would flip that over and you'd have the units facing the parking lot. It's almost no difference.
now wait, so when you say I'm sorry,
not
when you
true.
say the units are facing the parking lot, are you saying that,
They're already facing the parking lot.
are you saying that this thing that you're showing?
Right now, off of this edge here, you can walk in from your unit, into your kitchen, into your living room, out to a small patio area in the back. If we took this and flipped it, you would go into your kitchen, into your living room, out a door to a public open space area that would have a sidewalk with a
But that would
parking
not
lot
be your
across the street.
front.
Right, that's the
That would not
front.
be your front door,
That
is
is
that
the
right?
front.
That's
It
what
would be
I'm
the
asking.
front door. It's all, it's
It would be
it's
the front
semantics
door.
to
It is
some
the front
degrees.
door.
It just opens onto a sidewalk instead of a.
It opens up to a public, it opens up to an open space
It
and a
wouldn't be the
sidewalk.
front, it would not be the front facade then
It's-
anymore.
It would be the
yes.
front
It would be.
facade.
It's the
It
same-
would
I
be-
mean, no, what I'm saying is, this thing right there would not be the front facade
No.
anymore.
No,
Is
the
that
garage-
right?
It'd be in the
Correct.
back.
Yeah,
It would
in
be
the back.
You'd only see it from the parking
Semantics.
lot, though. Your approach to the townhome would always be off of the alley. It's almost, I don't
Why?
understand how it's a
That's
better scenario
I'm sorry.
than what we're proposing.
That's not, it's
That's
just, no, your approach is still from the front. You will park your car in the alley. See, I think it's semantics. The front door's gonna be the same place it is, you just won't have a 16-foot garage next to it. That doesn't change.
Yeah.
The garage is on the back, you'll still drive in your garage and walk in your house. If I'm visiting you, I'm still gonna approach, and I'm gonna go around and park in the back. So it's semantics. It's just you don't have a garage being 75% of your face of your building.
And if I might add, planning would like to support the alternative of putting that garage on an alley so that, as they say, if residents are truly traversing back and forth to the assisted living facility, they're doing so through a public open space, engaging with their neighbors on an open space patio where that's their front door. If that's truly the intent that they park their car and then go back and forth, we want that space to be as engaging and as pedestrian friendly as possible versus what they're proposing with
Which is
front loaded garages that
on the
they'll
street.
continually have to cross over.
Mr. Chairman, comment for you, comment.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we continue to talk about these design modifications, but we're not getting into any kind of motion or vote, so I would love, if okay with you guys, if we would go into these modifications one by one
Yes.
and sort of address those since we're having the conversation.
That'd be
Yes.
great.
But, because we're talking about front-facing garages, I want to start with two, while it's still fresh in everybody's mind. So modification standard number 2, or design modification, I guess, is technically what it's called, that they're requesting to permit front-facing garage doors.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion is to approve with a proper second.
And I still want to
Discussion,
say, I want to say, this completely is the opposite of what our zoning ordinance says.
Opposite.
It is exactly the opposite of that.
Well, our zoning ordinance changes about every 6 months. I mean, there's.
I wish we could say that it
I
changed
mean,
every
we
6
took out
months.
RM
I'm
zoning
sorry.
the last 2 months, back first of the year, and I don't understand why we took out RM zoning. We're changing, this is a ongoing, we talked about that at the workshop. Our city's changing constantly, and this project is a fabulous project in a remote part of a part of the city that is so vital to the public safety. That property has been sitting dormant for years, and it is so dangerous back in there, and probably ranked one of the highest crime areas of teenagers sitting back in there and possibly doing things that are not necessarily good for our city. That project offers a fabulous senior component back in there. To put an alley in there doesn't make sense. This is a standalone type development that is serving the need. My mother would live in this unit right here. That big garage door would make it so easy to get her things out of her car. Now, to me, you've got 75% facade versus garage door, counting it upstairs. So I don't understand why that garage is so intrusive. It's a great-looking architect there, and this property is well deserving of that. I applaud the developer to bring that in. Maybe the garage door can be dropped down to 12 foot or 14 foot. Because I think in the workshop, we were told that, and it was well received when it was first brought to us in the workshop, we were told that, the people that are going to live in the townhomes may have a car, but they may not ever pull it out of that garage. And they may eventually end up in the senior component. So you're not going to get a lot of traffic in there anyway. But you are going to clean that area up that is in dire need to be cleaned up. And I'm in favor of the modification.
I must. Okay. I must say, I'm very surprised at the willingness to totally go against what our zoning ordinance, and this is from a group who cares about fences so much that we have to get a permit to put a fence in the front of your house. Guys, I have a feeling sometimes, and this is me, let's not get caught up, I don't think we should get caught up so much in who's developing it or what the quality of it is. If we're concerned about fences, we surely have to be concerned with the front of a building being 75% a garage. And not only that, for seniors who are going to be over the age of 65, have to be over the age of 65, who we're supposedly promoting them going out and walking. If we do this today, we might as well, for all the rest of those you say that are looking at, let's just change the zoning ordinance, because that's what's going to happen. We're setting a precedence here. I think that the zoning ordinance, as you say, it is changed frequently, but I think this was done for a reason. And we pay a lot. When we had houses come, we've had folks come in who wanted to put their garages on the front of one house of 10 houses. We're proposing, I think what we're proposing is ludicrous, and I really, really, really have an issue with that. We need to revisit some other things if we can approve this. I'm flabbergasted is what I am, and I'll just leave it there.
All right, any other comments?
I would just like to say, I think something key that Greg brought up was that in almost all the areas in Franklin, this is not appropriate. There's some townhouses right on Murfreesboro Road, where the front is on the front and the alley is in the back. But this location is back behind a huge building, and because of the location of it, because of the convenience, I think, to the residents that would be living here, and because of the residents that are surrounding it and the people behind it, I think for this particular unique instance, it makes sense to me.
All right, Roger.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to agree with the position that Lisa just described. This has been one of the most challenging sites that we've dealt with here in several years. I'm looking for a way to say that this is a good development to put on this site. The constraints are enormous. The size of the church and the parking lot creates constraints on this site. The drainage that cuts across the upper left corner back there creates constraints. I don't know how you run an alley behind the other row of units, because there's no real access to that without infringing into the drainage situation and having to totally regrade the site. The owner has come back to us with this scenario. None of us liked what he brought it to us 2 years ago. This is a significant compromise to what we originally considered for this. I know there's been input from neighbors across the back fence. We've had discussions and debates about that 100-foot setback, which we would probably all like for him to see maintained. But I think we need to find a way to make this thing work. And if we overload it with constraints, then we're gonna kill it, and we'll end up with something we can't live with 6 months from now.
Well, I guess my question would be, is it the planning commission's job, is it our duty to make sure that projects work for land? Is that really part of our charge? And I agree, much better than what we saw 2 years ago, but is that part of what we're supposed to consider when we do that, the lesser of two evils? I've just, and I will leave that alone, but I think we really need to think about that. And if so, let's make that the standard for every project that comes in. I just would like to see, I mean, either yay or nay, and let's not, let's not falter every time. Let's have and I understand, at least I will say, and I can really agree with the fact that this is a special case, but know this, we're going to see this over and over and over. And we need to, as a planning commission, if we want to throw it out, let's throw it out so we don't have to do this every time an assisted living comes through here. It's a waste of time in my opinion, if that's what we're going to do. If we need to take a look at that, if that's what we want to consider, or if this is just for this development.
I do agree. I'm concerned about setting a precedent, and no doubt there will be others who will be making this very same request. And how does one differentiate between requests from a similar development?
We look at them independently.
But we cannot do that. We must
Well, that's
treat
our
everybody-
charge. That is our charge, to look at these projects,
This
and
is
that's
an
why we're
infill
here talking
development.
about
They
it
will all
tonight.
be independently different from another.
Well, please remember, though, if you make distinctions, then you're going to have to defend that, and sometimes in court.
Not a problem.
All right, any other comments? Okay, we're looking at modification number 2, design modification number 2 that allows front-facing garage doors. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes. So then we'll move to design modification number 3 that requests to permit one 16-foot wide garage door. Is there a motion for that?
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes. All right, let's go back up to modification number 1. Requests to increase the maximum building length of the assisted living building from 200 feet to a length of 381 feet. Is there a
Move for
motion?
approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I just want to say, in talking about doing some things where we're always approving them, we need to change the zoning ordinance for the length of the building. We have approved this so many times. I
Yes.
don't disagree on this.
But
This
just
is a
change it.
place for it. But really, we need to go back to our zoning ordinance and see if we can get it approved to change, because we should not continue just to routinely approve modification of standards on something like that.
Right.
As I say, I agree that this is acceptable here, but that's something that needs to be changed.
All right, any other comments? All in favor of modification number 1, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Then item number 4, request to permit the minimum height of the foundation for the townhomes at 4 inches from finished grade.
Move for approval. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I've got a question.
Please.
Are there any issues with respect to the drainage on that northwest corner with a lowered finished floor elevation?
Michael?
Thank you, guys. Michael Garrigan, civil engineer with Dell & Associates, 516 Heather Place in Nashville. Roger, which were you specifically? Were you speaking to the buffer yard?
The finished floor elevation, there's a drainage way that cuts across the site.
Right. No, we'll make sure that obviously that it's above that. I believe we've got the 30-foot stream buffer backing up to it, and I think one of the staff comments was to modify some of the finished floor elevations, which obviously would be done through the site plan and tied down a little bit in more detail.
Is that a
but
conveyance as opposed to a stream?
That is a stream at that point.
It is a stream.
It begins right where the stream buffer
Any floodplain on that
begins.
stream?
There's not.
And so where does that water go?
It kind of continues north, I guess, southeast from that corner there, continues over, and then it cuts over to, what's the street to the west there?
Jordan Road.
What's that?
Jordan Road.
Yes, sir.
Jordan Road.
And continues to the west.
Okay.
But it goes down on those properties in Royal Oaks, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Well, it continues on behind their houses, yes.
It looks like it's going right down on their houses. I mean, I've heard some people talk about the water.
Are you talking about Royal Oaks up to the north, or, oh, okay, up to the north? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the drainage ditch does run in their backyards. I thought we were talking about the west side there. The channel runs in their backyards, and like Greg said, a lot of their problems is there's side yard fences that are covering up the ditch, and as it gets clogged with debris, that's where the water ponds. And none of this site's runoff enters the stream to the north. Only, it all drains to the west.
But Royal Oaks does. Royal Oaks and Heritage Place that are both over to the west. I don't know.
I think Heritage is to the east, is it not? Am I wrong there?
Close,
No.
there's a ridge in there somewhere where this water flows down toward 96 and the other water flows toward.
Heritage is to the west,
Yes.
very definitely.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, any other comments? Okay, so we're voting on modification number 4. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Back to the main motion.
I do want to say, that's also something else that we need to look at, because, our normal height is what? Is it 50, 18 feet? 18 inches.
18 inches,
Been a long night. Okay, but still, that is something that needs to be looked at for certain kinds of housing, I would think. This is one of the types that would warrant that.
Mr. Chairman, going back to the main motion, that was with conditions, right? I know that
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Who made that main?
Jimmy Franks made the motion.
Jimmy doing the motion?
Yes.
Jimmy, if you can just make sure that your motion includes the conditions of approval.
Okay.
Now, assuming that those conditions, though, are to deny. So
But it
if we're-
has-
No,
There's other conditions.
We have
That was
conditions of
another
approval
condition.
above
Okay.
and beyond what, yes.
That's a
yes,
separate
that.
document, yeah.
Thank you.
I do.
Okay, so his motion now is, I pronounce you man and bride. I think I
Mr.
have
Chairman, I
authority.
do believe one of the conditions that we had was if you were to approve it, we were asking that they do a different size door. Do you want to, as, that is a condition, does that condition stand, or is that condition
Defeated.
eliminated?
It's been changed with your modification.
Yes. yeah,
Okay,
we-
thank you.
Okay.
Yes, then was.
And Scott, did you second that? You agree with his modified?
I do agree.
Okay.
I don't think it was me, though.
I had it, Michael.
Oh, was it Michael? Okay.
Yeah, I just don't want
I don't think that was me.
to about it tomorrow. when we're trying
All
to
right, by the
figure it out.
power vested in me. Okay, so proper motion, we're back to the main motion. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
All right, the ayes have it. Okay, if I'm counting right, are we on 16 now? Ordinance 2014-47, to be entitled ordinance to rezone plus or minus 195.5 acres from specific development residential SDR 1.72 to specific residential SDR 1.91. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Water's Edge PUD was originally approved in 2013 for 336 homes on 195.5 acres. This comes out to a density of 1.72. The applicant is proposing to build an additional 37 homes, raising the total to 373 homes in a density of 1.91. 1.91 is lower than the other developments in this corridor. However, approximately half of the Water's Edge PUD is floodplain and undevelopable. Once informal open space is removed from the density calculation, the net density is about 4 units per acre, which is still within the range of the other nearby PUDs. Staff issues a favorable recommendation to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
All right, is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak to this item? All right, is there someone representing the applicant?
Jeez.
Had a full night's sleep.
State your name.
My name is Greg Gamble, representing the applicant. It's not every planning commission where they all collide together at one time, but it's just, tonight's that night. You received in your initial packet a recommendation, I believe, for denial on this plan. And after understanding what staff was looking for, we were able to address their issue and address their concern. And I know this is small, 8.5 by 11, but I'd like to pass this out. And this is exactly what you see here in front of you on this board, which is the development plan for Water's Edge. This is Development Plan Revision 3. Development Plan Revision 2, working with staff, we modified the entrance into the subdivision, and we took away the small fitness room. We had a fitness, fitness building and walking trails with Development Plan 1. That went away. We have since added a full residence club. It's going to have a lounge. It's going to have a fitness room inside of it. It has a full swimming pool. It's got a kids splash area. It has a playground. We now have an amenity with the evolution of the development plan. We still have the Greenway Trail that crosses or follows along the banks of the Harpeth River that ties back into Carruthers Parkway and also into the amenities area. With these changes, and with the success of where Goodall Homes is also building right up the street in Lockwood Glen on lots that are a little bit smaller than 60 foot wide, they started seeing the market demand for the smaller lot. Now call it the fact that the buyers don't want to maintain as large of an area. I don't know, but the success for them at Lockwood Glen has been on this smaller lot. They saw an opportunity here to increase the number of smaller lots they have. Now that did increase the total number of units. What staff was concerned about was in this southern area, and Andrew, please correct me if I'm wrong, the southern area here just felt a little bit too dense without any open space breaks. So we have added an additional formal open space park within this network of blocks to create that visual break in the street. With that addition and the additional open space there, staff changed their recommendation from denial to approval. So this plan that you're seeing here in front of you, and I apologize for it being small, but that change will be incorporated in the post-PC Planning Commission submittal with your support. Happy to answer any questions that you may have about that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item 17, Resolution 2014-98 to be entitled a resolution approving a development plan for Water's Edge PUD subdivision located at 4413 South Carruthers Road. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we've kind of gotten into the particulars of the development. But please note that the buildable area of Water's Edge is not expanding. The footprint stays the same. This development is surrounded by floodplain, so the additional homes will be peppered into the existing footprint of the development. The additional 37 homes are being integrated by decreasing the existing lot sizes. And it should be important to note with their development plan that the one that's already approved, they do have entitlements to build 53-foot lots. Section 1 is not included, that there will be no additional homes going into Section 1. That's already gone through the site plan approval process. To get a feel for the changes, you can see the contrast between the lot sizes in Section 1 and the rest of the PUD. So really, the concerns that we've had are less about density, but more about the actual intensity of the development. Because the vast majority of open space is along the perimeter, there's not a whole lot of open space or green space within the developed area to kind of break up the monotony and the long blocks and the continual rows of homes. The detached single-family homes are on small lots, all with front-facing garages, which is acceptable and meets our approved standards, meets the approved standards. But adding more units to an already compact development will compress and make this even tighter. To help alleviate this concern, the applicant has proposed to add open space to the interior of the development. And staff is comfortable working with the applicant on these changes at the post-PC submittal and issues a favorable recommendation to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen with conditions.
All right, thank you. Anyone in the audience wants to speak to this item? All right, seeing none, is there someone representing the applicant?
Hi, my name is Greg Gamble. When Water's Edge was first approved, it was on the heels of Lockwood Glen. It was right along the same timeline as Simmons Ridge and Echelon. Ladd Park was well underway under construction, but this is a major residential corridor of Carruthers Parkway. It links together the retail commercial of Berry Farms to the retail corridor of 96 and really everything headed north, office parks along Carruthers to the north. Looking at the net densities, which is what staff is talking about of these other developments that are in this neighborhood, I call the whole block here, the whole area of Carruthers Parkway, the neighborhood. Ladd Park has a net density of 3.07 dwelling units per acre. That's excluding, taking all the open space out. Now that leaves in the right-of-ways, leaves in the roadways, but pulls out the open space. The next highest one is Echelon, which is at 3.94. So it is a mix of small lots, mix of attached product, very similar at 3.94. Water's Edge at 4.01. Lockwood Glen, then going to the north, has a net density of 5.84. And Simmons Ridge with the highest at 9.5. So this at 4.01 is certainly compatible from a net density standpoint to those neighbors around it. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding our development plan. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion?
Move for approval with staff conditions.
Second.
Proper motion and second. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 18, Forest Crossing subdivision site plan, YMCA parking addition, 98 additional parking spaces on 8.0 acres. Staff.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, please note that the site plan and the exhibit was provided at your chair. It was not in your packet earlier, so you do have that site plan. The applicant of the YMCA parking lot addition is appealing part of a condition of approval placed on the site plan during the administrative approval process. The condition requires a sidewalk be installed along their property line adjacent to the Royal Oaks Court right-of-way and requires that that sidewalk extend to the intersection of Royal Oaks Court. The zoning ordinance requires sidewalks when new construction is proposed, and staff feels that the intent of the ordinance is that that sidewalk extend to an intersection. Further, staff has had an open dialogue with TDOT. The sidewalk will be extending into TDOT right away. Staff has had an open dialogue with TDOT, and we understand that there are no upcoming plans to modify this intersection. And we also understand that an applicant would have to obtain approval from TDOT to put in the sidewalk, but that TDOT has a precedent of approving those requests when the city is asking for such a sidewalk to be built. So because of these things, staff requests that the Planning Commission uphold the condition of approval and deny this appeal.
Okay,
So what, I'm sorry.
let's follow the process here real quick. Anybody in the audience wants to speak to this? Is there someone representing the applicant?
Good evening. I am not Greg Gamble. Just in case you were. I'd like to pass it to you. I submitted this letter by email to Amy this afternoon just to be entered into the record. And I want to make sure I pass along a copy of it. It does have a copy of the site plan attached to the back of it, but it's the same thing that's actually in your packet, I believe.
Sir,
Again,
we know who you're not. Could you
yeah,
state who you are?
I'm sorry, that's exactly where I'm going. My name is Matt Foster. I'm an attorney with H3GM in Nashville. That's 333 Commerce Street in Nashville. I represent the YMCA of Middle Tennessee. I've got a number of folks here this evening. I'm not going to name everybody here, but we've got folks from the YMCA and also from its engineering firm, Reagan Smith. First of all, I want to be clear about what this is not. This is not a PUD amendment. This is not a rezoning. This is not a subdivision. The YMCA is not expanding services. It's not expanding the size of its facility. It's not expanding services. What we're doing here is we're appealing an administrative decision. This springs from the fact that the YMCA opened the Franklin Family YMCA in 1995, this exact same location. Growth has been substantial in that time, and as a result, there's not enough parking for the people who presently use the facility. The YMCA desires to expand the existing parking lot by adding 98 additional parking spaces. That's what brought up the review, was that we're adding additional parking spaces. We're not increasing the size of the facility. We're not increasing the number of services. We're simply trying to provide for the number of members who use the facility. By way of some background, last month the YMCA appeared before the Franklin Board of Zoning Appeals. Section 5.10.6 of the zoning ordinance would have required the YMCA to create and build a sidewalk from the front entrance of the building down to Royal Oaks Court. The YMCA sought a variance for that and received a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals because the BZA found that the YMCA's property has exceptional, unique topographic challenges. There's a steep drop from the front of the facility all the way down to Royal Oak Court. Because of those exceptional topographic conditions, the BZA found that compliance with the ordinance would require substantial regrading of the natural topography of the land and would result in practical difficulties and an undue hardship to the YMCA. And the BZA granted that variance because it could do so without doing harm to the public interest. Following receipt of that variance, the YMCA complied with the zoning ordinance and submitted a site plan for approval from the department. The department has recommended conditional approval of that site plan, and the YMCA has accepted all of the conditions requested by the department with the exception of two. And I want to be clear, they're really it's one appeal, but there's two questions that are raised. The first is that the staff is requiring the YMCA to construct a sidewalk on property that the YMCA does not own. And the YMCA is appealing that requirement. Second of all, the YMCA requested the right to pay funds in lieu of construction because the factors identified in the zoning ordinance have been met and are satisfied in this circumstance. Let me take the first part of the appeal here. The ordinance requires sidewalks on both sides of all streets except Mac Hatcher Parkway. Section 5.1013 5C, I know that's a lot, specifically says that sidewalks shall connect with existing or planned sidewalks at property boundaries. And that's the key language here. The zoning ordinance says the sidewalk must connect at property boundaries. In 1987, the plat of this subdivision shows the property boundary. This is not us, okay? The plat from 1987 shows the property boundary right here. It goes back. This is the 8 acres. The legal description to the property that the YMCA purchased in 1994 says it goes to the edge of TDOT's property. TDOT acquired this land and this land prior to that time through condemnation. So it could build Mac Hatcher Parkway, so it could widen it, so that there would be a landscape buffer there. This is TDOT's land. This is the YMCA's land. And this right here is the property boundary. The zoning ordinance says that the sidewalk must go to the property boundary. The YMCA purchased that property with no reasonable expectation of ever being required to improve another person's property, even if that is TDOT. Furthermore, it's our view that constructing the sidewalk all the way to the edge of pavement on Mac Hatcher is not going to result in increased pedestrian safety. If you extend the sidewalk all the way up here, there's no crosswalk here. The ideal place would be to connect it across the street to the north side of South Royal Oaks Court, but there's no pedestrian crosswalk there. There's no light. There are no safety devices. And so it's our view that extending the sidewalk this far will not, and in fact, wrapping it around onto Mac Hatcher will not improve pedestrian safety. Section 510 of the ordinance, which establishes the purpose and intent of the sidewalk requirements, specifically cites safety, pedestrian safety, 4 times as a purpose for requiring sidewalks. My view is that if this doesn't enhance safety, it just shouldn't be built. Added to the fact that this isn't the YMCA's property, and the zoning ordinance says you build to the property line. Let me be clear, the YMCA is not appealing the requirement to build the sidewalk on its property. This section, this is 310 feet, I believe, and the engineers might correct me. This is 310 feet of sidewalk. The YMCA is not appealing that requirement. The YMCA is appealing the requirement to construct the sidewalk on someone else's land for another 140 plus feet in a fashion that we believe is not going to enhance public safety. The second part of the appeal is related to the opportunity to pay fees in lieu of construction of the sidewalk. The ordinance states, and I quote here, fees in lieu of installing a required public sidewalk, an owner may pay fees in lieu of installing a public sidewalk upon a finding that 1, the street is designated as a state highway or route subject to widening or improvement in the foreseeable future. 2, the street is planned for improvement per the major thoroughfare plan. Or 4, I'm skipping 3 because it's not applicable here. 4, the right-of-way, developing lot, or lot abutting a proposed sidewalk is not suitable for sidewalks due to unique site conditions. We believe that those 3 factors have been satisfied here. I'm going to go in the order that I think is most important. If constructed as required by the department, the public sidewalk on the YMCA property, right here, is going to be adjacent to a ditch. There's a very steep ditch with a 2-to-1 grade. That's in the 5-foot buffer between the edge of the pavement and where the 5-foot sidewalk would be. So you're right next to a very steep ditch, and in this area, it's filled with riprap to manage the drainage. On the south side of the sidewalk is a steep slope going up here, and I would ask that you take note of the fact that the Board of Zoning Appeals agreed that this was a steep slope and represented exceptional, unique topographic conditions that warranted a variance. And so we believe that funds in lieu of construction is warranted under that section of the zoning code because you've got steep slope, 2-to-1 grade to the north of the proposed sidewalk, and steep slopes that the BZA has said is exceptional and unique to the south of the proposed sidewalk. Now, while Royal Oaks Court is not a state highway, it's not identified on the major thoroughfare plan, it's our view that you've got to look at Royal Oaks Court as part and parcel of Mack Hatcher Parkway. TDOT has got this listed as a plan, Mack Hatcher, as planned to be expanded. In certain areas, Mack Hatchers are at 4 or 5 lanes. In this section, that intersection is wider because there are turning lanes, but it is scheduled still for expansion. They're in the engineering phase at this point. No, it is not scheduled for construction. No, funds are not allocated for this construction. But I'd ask you to take notice of the fact that the General Assembly is talking about raising the gas tax so they can fund this backlog of projects. This is one of them.
Sir, can you begin to wrap up?
I will. I'm sorry.
Please.
The other thing I'd ask you to take notice of is that widening of this intersection is listed in Project N3 of the Williamson County Major Thoroughfare Plan. We believe that paying these funds in lieu of actually constructing a sidewalk will have a greater benefit to the community. Anything that's constructed is going to get torn up by TDOT when they do that project, when they widen that intersection. The city can use those funds that the YMCA would pay in to construct sidewalks on Royal Oaks Court when and after those TDOT improvements are constructed, or to fund construction of multi-use path. I apologize for running so long. Thank you so much for your service. I know it's been a long night. If I can answer any questions, I'd be glad to do that.
All right, thank you. I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the appeal.
With conditions?
With conditions, sorry.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Go ahead, never mind.
I guess I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded, discussion. Marcia, do you want to say something? No?
Yes.
I've already said it all.
I guess the question is, why, what was the thinking about not allowing in lieu payments?
It's pretty common to require developments to install sidewalk along the frontage of their development. The city's right now spending funding to put sidewalk all along State Route 96, east and west, which could have largely been done when those developments occurred. It's going to be an extremely large capital cost to the city. This is very similar. Yes, Mack Hatcher will be widened one day, and yes, there will be a multi-use trail there one day, but when will that occur? And when development comes in, we typically ask for the improvements to occur in the front of their development. And if you look at the northeast quadrant of this intersection, you'll notice that the developer did the exact same thing. They installed sidewalk along the frontage and provided the handicap ramp. It's a very simple permit to do. It's not a huge cost or a lot to ask of the development. So our opinion is that the improvement should come in now because there is no funding in the near future to fund the widening of the project. So that was the thought process, and it's really up to the Planning Commission of how we move forward with it. Thank you.
So, but was there the topography on the other side? Was there similar topography on the other side that there is here?
they can make the grading work within the right-of-way. Yes, it will take some work on site, but it can be done to provide the sidewalk and the connection to the intersection.
All right.
And they
any
had
other-
significant,
Scott?
Mr. Chairman, Paul, is there any kind of recovery that they could have in the event the state comes in next year and tears it out and builds a road?
there would
That
not
ain't
be
gonna happen
recovery
next
for
year.
this.
That's not
No,
gonna
sir.
happen next year.
There would not be recovery.
No recovery.
The state's been talking about extending Mac Hatch over my side of town for the last 25 years, so there'll probably be no problem with that.
All right, any other discussion?
So the existing sidewalk on Royal Oaks is in the northeast quadrant?
Yes,
And this
sir.
is in the southwest, so there's no connectivity between the two?
There will not be connectivity until the city comes in and looks at some signal upgrades, which we're not asking of the developer, and provides the additional sidewalks, which may become a priority at some point in time for the board.
And then back to the, basically back to the west, where it terminates at the end of the property line, are there sidewalks back over there? Or is this just a stretch of sidewalk?
It would just be a segmented stretch that would be connected either with future development or with future city projects.
But it does connect to the road shoulder of Mac Hatcher, which a
it
lot of
does.
people run.
Yes.
So that allows them access and get from there up to with the YMCA without getting out into Royal Oaks.
Part
People,
of
you're
the-
saying people run on that?
Yes.
Absolutely. It's part of the thought with this in the first place, because when I was an alderman, I'll just do this quick, because this needs to be said, representing the oldest part of Franklin, all the new development, that was part of what you had to do, with no sidewalks. So the thought was the city cannot afford to go in and build sidewalks all over town. But every time there's a development or something new goes on, if we get enough segments built, as he said, well, if the city can come along and build 10 feet here and 10 feet there, but if we never start, we'll never have it. There'll be some parts of town that will never have sidewalks. We will never have safe places for people to walk. And so that was the intent. So if you look at it just in segments, sometimes it looks crazy, but the full plan is to one day have where we have at least some sidewalks, or majority of sidewalks that people will be able to actually walk rather than drive everywhere.
But now this is on the little court part. It's not on Royal Oaks. It's not on, is that where we're asking to put the sidewalk, is on the little Royal Oaks court?
May I answer?
That's correct.
Down to the intersection of Mac Hatcher.
That's correct.
Yes.
They're not appealing the sidewalk along Royal Oaks Court. They're appealing,
I understand that, but I'm just saying, that's where the sidewalk is. Where would it go? Excuse me, but where would it go?
May I answer that?
Okay.
You may answer yes.
The YMCA is not appealing the obligation to construct the sidewalk right here. That's exactly right. And it would stop 140 feet from Mac Hatcher Parkway. But one thing that's important, I think, to keep in mind here, we completely agree, or I completely agree, I'm not going to speak for the YMCA, I guess. It absolutely makes sense to require construction of sidewalk when you are doing a development, when you have a developer. This is not a developer, and this is not a development. We're not increasing density, it's not a...
Sir, I just asked you to answer her question, that's all.
I apologize.
I didn't want to get into the argument again and hear another 20-minute discussion. Let's just answer the question that she had, please. Okay. Did that answer your question, Ms. Peterson?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. All
So,
right.
can I clarify,
Yes.
if we vote to approve the appeal, then we're saying that they are gonna build it in right here on Royal Oaks, but they're not gonna build it around the corner.
That is correct.
Yeah, yeah.
And I believe it would include fees in lieu of as part of that appeal, if I'm understanding right. Is that correct?
that's what they've asked for on the floor here.
Okay, as opposed to just not installing it at all and not paying for it, there would be fees in lieu of.
So either way, they're gonna build the sidewalk on Royal Oaks.
That's correct.
Royal Oaks Court.
That'd be a sidewalk to nowhere.
Yeah.
So
It
they
is.
have the option of not building it. They can pay
Well, that's what they're saying they can't,
that they what?
but they can't pay fees in lieu.
That they
That
would.
was the original decision, was it not?
The original condition was that the
They
request for
built it.
fees in lieu was denied. They're
Yeah.
requesting an appeal of that here on the floor, so that they can pay fees in lieu for the portion of the sidewalk along Royal Oaks Court. So the option is, if they would like to not build the sidewalk along the corner and also not build the sidewalk along Royal Oaks Court, but pay the fees in lieu for that portion of the sidewalk.
Okay.
So
Well, that was-
approving
Not build
this
at all.
appeal lets them pay in lieu of and not build around the corner. And disapproving means they have to build the sidewalk all the way. Or they can pay fees in lieu of.
No,
No, no fees.
They have to build all of the sidewalk.
Yes,
If we disapprove the appeal.
that's correct.
I think you said two different things, though. I thought you said that they wouldn't build any sidewalk and pay fees in lieu of if we approved the administrative appeal.
Could we clarify?
If we approve what they're asking for, they wouldn't build, they just pay. Is that what you, is
They
that? what-
could build, or they could pay fees in lieu.
Or they could pay fees and not build.
They could build it, or they could pay fees in lieu.
Thank you.
Not just in the right-of-way.
Yeah. I think Brad Slade and Reagan Smith Associates, I think our request for appeal is to not construct here, and if granted, we wanted to discuss funds in lieu of, fees in lieu of for the portion of our, this, because it would be just a segment. So if you approve the appeal, we want you to also consider funds and fees in lieu of for this portion. If that is disapproved, obviously, we would be obligated to build our frontage. So the fees in lieu of discussion is simply for our frontage here.
And I think staff's confused because they didn't know that was going to be talked about.
That's no sidewalk.
Yeah, that's
That was a
something-
that was a new concept.
This is a new wrinkle for us.
It was all on the same condition. I apologize for not clarifying that with staff.
So you didn't know they were gonna ask for fees in lieu of?
Yeah, it wasn't my understanding that they were
Okay,
Mr.
so-
Chairman, I would like to remove my request for approval
Okay,
of the appeal.
all right. If you remove the motion, I'm assuming that takes the second away?
Automatically.
So we're back to looking for a motion.
I'll make a
Motion to
motion
deny.
that we, second it.
That we did what?
That we deny the
Appeal.
administrative,
Appeal.
that we deny their request to appeal the administrative decision.
Okay?
I'll second.
It's a motion and then a second to deny their appeal. Any discussion?
And so what you mean is they build the whole sidewalk all the way through the property to the roadway through TDOT's property.
As
That's what
originally
your,
required.
that's what your
Yes.
motion is.
And then they can come back and ask us for a fee in lieu of on the whole thing.
Well,
So if we deny the appeal, can they come back and ask for a fee in lieu of?
no, I think we're done.
Yeah, then we're done.
And the reason I'm supporting that is because, I mean, I think it's a safety issue. I think people, even though BOZA gave them the variance not to build a sidewalk from the door down to the road, I think because it is very steep and it's hard to get down there, people still do it. Even though there's not a sidewalk there, people still walk down there and they run on Mac Hatcher. I see it all the time. And if you, so at least having the, you know, if you don't have the sidewalk from the door down there, can't do anything about that now, but if we don't put a sidewalk down there, they're still gonna be down there, and there's a ton of traffic down there. As we all know, the people in Royal Oaks go over there and go up into the YMCA and turn around to go down there, and it's a lot of traffic. I think it's a safety issue not having a sidewalk there.
I totally agree. The sidewalk is relatively inexpensive, the flat work. And, I mean, Paul could probably tell us more. There's all sorts of economic ways to put that sidewalk in.
All right, guys, I have an odd request. Because we've gone so long, the tape is about to run out. So we have to do a 2-minute recess, and then we'll come back in 2 minutes while they change the tape out.